with someone who I have admired all through my career as a journalist and as a media management professional. Her monumental achievements will run into pages if I narrate them in detail, but I'll try and succinctly highlight some of them to do justice to her body of work. As president of Jagran Group, one of India's largest multimedia conglomerates, this IIM Bangalore graduate straddles many worlds, managing a diverse portfolio that includes print, radio, digital, and outdoor. She has worked with marquee organizations like Zee Telefilms, Times of India, and partnered with private equity partners like True North, one of India's oldest PE firms. She has also set up new ventures and supervised turnarounds in mature and declining organizations. She has won multiple business awards and has been named as one of the most powerful women in business as per India Today Group, Fortune India, and was awarded LinkedIn Top Voices of 2020. Great milestones. Under her people-oriented leadership and focus on building a great culture, Radio City has been consecutively featured in the Great Place to Work survey for over 9 years now, and has become a case study on building high-impact cultures which have a direct correlation on profitability. She is also a leading voice advocating gender diversity in Indian business landscape, and also the author of 2 national best-selling books, Lady, You Are Not a Man, The Adventures of a Woman at Work, and Lady, You Are the Boss. Through her books, she aims to empower women and encourage them to achieve their full potential. Drawing from her personal experiences, she talks about how women minimize themselves, suffer from the imposter syndrome, we'll talk about it a little more in the session, and settle for less than they are capable of because of external prejudices as well as misguided internal self-beliefs. Apurva Purohit, ma'am, such a pleasure to have you in our midst. I remember having met you as a cub journalist way back in 2005 when I was doing a documentary on Subhash Chandra, the owner of Zee, and the kind of command, the kind of aura that you had around you, even at that young age, was just inspiring. I would now request you to address this gathering with your inspiring thoughts on how you can find a purpose in these very challenging times. I would hand it over to you now.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for your kind words, Professor. So without much ado, let me just get straight away into the topic that we are discussing. And I must say that you have elected a very, very complex and complicated subject to discuss. So while purpose sounds as a very simple word, actually, I think many people spend their entire life trying to figure out what the purpose of their lives is, and until the end of their lives, they're not able to figure out what it is. And so it is for organizations, so it is for businesses, entrepreneurships, countries even. What is the purpose? Why do we exist in this life is a existential question, which I don't think many people have been able to find answers to. But as you discuss purpose and as you think about purpose over the next few days, and hopefully the sessions will trigger larger thoughts in your mind, I think what you will find that there are essentially 2 schools of thought around purpose. One school of thought is the very Sisyphean thought, which is, Sisyphus has a boulder which he keeps on pushing up, and the moment he reaches up the top of the hill, again the boulder goes down. And therefore life is like that. So what's the point in even having a purpose? All of us are just endlessly rolling a boulder up for it to fall down again, and again we'll roll it up. So the fatalists around us, and especially in situations such as what we have faced in the last 1 year, where life is so uncertain, where environment is so uncertain, that nobody would blame you if you would just sit under your bed sheet and say, what's the point of even getting up today? I mean, what is the point of even having something like purpose in such an uncertain, unclear, ambiguous, volatile environment? So that's the one school of thought. But then that is the school of thought which says, okay, all of us are going to die, so what's the point in even living? The other school of thought, which is polar opposite to this thinking, is where everybody will exhort you to have a very clear goal in life, a very clear mission in life, and say, why are you so aimless? Your parents will say, what do you do? Why can't you be structured in your thinking? Tell me what you want to become. Tell me 5 years from now what you want to do. Tell me 10 years from now where you will be, and let's break up these 5-year goals into annual goals, biannual goals, weekly goals. All of us, who either go to the gym or conscious about our weight, etc., got used to calculating everything in 200 calories and 10,000 steps and breaking things into sub goals and sub KRAs. And that's the school of thought which is highly structured and wants you to be very, very definitive.
Life is a project.
Absolutely.
You see everything is a project.
Absolutely. And when you see it like that, of course, there are certain advantages in that, because then you're not flitting and floating around aimlessly. But what happens when you are so structured? What happens when you have one goal that you decided when you were 16 years and say, when I'm 32, I will have this much money and I will become an entrepreneur with a valuation of 2,000 crores in the finance industry? One, life, as we all know, is uncertain. There are so many zigs and zags that life takes that if you have that one structured goal, more likely than not, you are doomed to disappointment. The second, even more bigger problem is what happens if you actually achieve that goal. So as Swami Chinmayanand said that, okay, so you start off and saying, I'm 21, by the time I'm 30, I should have 5 crores in the bank. And you actually end up having 5 crores in the bank by the time you're 30. Then what? Do you cease existing? Then what happens? And therefore, for me, the ideal way to think about purpose really is not to have this either a fatalistic attitude or this ultra intense outlook on purpose, but to have what I call my purpose light model, the purpose medium kind of a model. And there are 3 things in this purpose light model. The first thing is that, of course, we should all have a goal. Of course, we should have an aim, whether as an organization, whether as an individual, whether in our professional lives, whether in our personal lives, we must have goals and aims and purposes. Without purpose, as people have said in the happiness equation, if you've read, that just having a purpose, forget achieving or not achieving it, just having a purpose is 50% of happiness, right? So it is important to have a purpose. But I would say there are 3 ways to look at this purpose. The first thing is to have a purpose which is fairly amorphous and universal. So you do have a purpose, you do have an aim, but it is fairly large and all-encompassing and universal. So, for example, if I said, I want to be the best woman CEO in media industry. Now, I may achieve it, I may not achieve it. Understand what it is doing. It's also limiting me in a sense, because I've decided this goal is this very specific goal. 50% chance I will fail, 50% chance I'll succeed, but I will succeed in a very narrow band, right? If life suddenly gave me an opportunity, let us say in running one consumer product company, would I say no because my purpose is fixated to being part of only the media industry? Maybe that was larger, maybe that was different, maybe that gave me more learning. So why should I define my goal or my purpose so narrowly? Why can't it be a little broad-based? And the more broad-based it is, the more you are able to flow with the ebb and movement of life. The more you are adaptable, the more you're agile, broadly you're going in a particular direction. But if life throws you one bam, you know how to move along with life. If life suddenly there's a flood, you know the bridge that you need to build across, because broadly you're going in that direction. You don't get taken aback because suddenly what you set out to do, you're not able to achieve for whatever reason. So I think having a purpose which is a little more broad based. So for example, in my life, my purpose all, because I don't like to define, I don't like to label, because I think labeling is very limiting and having a specific goal is very limiting. So I just said, I want to be the best CEO who is also a great teacher. Now, I think that's a fairly loose structure. At the same time, it's very clear in my mind what a good CEO who's a great teacher means. It's very clear in my mind what that means. But it's fluid enough. So sometimes when I get a chance to be something, to write a book, it fulfills the teacher aspect in my life. So I embrace that. So I think having an amorphous universal purpose is extremely important, whether for individuals or for businesses. So when we first set up Radio City, it was in the heydays of FM, and FM industry was booming. It was growing. You could see that the next 30 years of the FM medium is going to be great. But even then, we didn't say that we want to be the best radio player. We said we want to be the best audio entertainment platform. Now, today, as things morph and change, and along with radio, remember, this is at a time in 2005 where there was no digital, no podcast, nothing around. Today, when podcasts and audio entertainment of another sort, streaming, etc., becoming more and more available, we don't have to change our vision statement, right? To say that now I will not call myself radio. Now I'm audio, because 2005 we started saying we are an audio entertainment medium, right? At the same time, it was not loose, I'm entertainment, because that's unfocused. So how do you find a purpose which is not unfocused, but also not very, very limiting? I think that's my first message to all of you as you think about purpose. The second thing on thinking about purpose is that, whenever we think of purpose, we think of it as a goal. We think of it as an outcome. But I think purpose is equally about the effort. So there's effort which results in an output or an outcome, an input which results in an output. I think it is extremely important to have purpose which is input driven too. So just think about this. You will say that, okay, I'm just passing out. I need a job. I think I need a job which should pay me 5 lakhs a month. Example. Now, that's your output. That's your goal. And if you're so focused on that 5 lakhs, you don't really care whether you get it through a bank job, whether you get it through a media job, whether you get it through becoming an entrepreneur, whether you get it through becoming a professor, whether you get it through becoming whatever. But as long, because your goal, your purpose is earning that 5 lakhs. But the fact is that that 5 lakh check will come only once a month. On the 30th of the month, you get the check, you'll feel happy. Oh, I achieved my purpose, I achieved my goal. But what did you do for those 29 days which led you to earn that 5 lakhs? Are you going to be, let's say you take up banking and you are deeply unhappy in banking. So 29 days of your life, you will be unhappy. Only on the 30th day when you see that check, you'll be happy. So the input, the effort that you put in, which is why, I think the most important statement in Hinduism, in Bhagavad Gita, is that karmane vadika raste ma phaleshu kadachana. Don't get wedded to the outcome, because that's not in your control. But definitely get wedded to the process, the way to achieve that goal. That's what karmane vadika raste says. Na? Why do they tell you to get wedded to the process? Because the process is what you will spend 99% of your life doing. The outcome is only once. Only once you will become the CEO. Only once you will become the team lead. Only once you will have that valuation. But what entrepreneurship you did for 25, 30 years of your life, if you don't enjoy that, what's that one day of having a 5,000 crore valuation, right? So that is why they say that spend time being wedded to the process, to the input, not only the output. And I think that's important from different ways. It is important from that if we want to enjoy our jobs, if we want to enjoy our relationships, if we want to enjoy life, if we want to lead a happy life, how we lead that life, what we do every minute of a day is more important than the output of what you got. The second thing is that input is in your control, output is not. So I'm, for example, at work also, I'm at great pains to separate out for my teams that 50% of your KRAs will be output KRAs, 50% of your KRAs will be input KRAs. So your output KRA is getting that 1 crore revenue out of your advertiser. Your input KRA is how many client relationships did you build, how many meetings did you do, what kind of innovations did you think about, etc. Now think about this: meetings that you do, innovations that you thought about, programming concepts that you develop, client relationships that you build. All 4 are in your control? Are they not? 100% they are in your control. Only you can build those relationships. Only you can think of those innovations. Only you can do the programming concepts. That the achievement of that 1 crore is actually not in your control. Because whatever you do, there will be times you'll achieve 1 crore. There will be times because the economy has tanked, there's been a pandemic, the opposition, the competition has dropped rates and you're not able to sell at the rates that you want, etc., etc. You will not achieve the output. But at least if I ensure that you as my executive, if I put 100% of your focus, KRAs, thinking only on the output, it's more like a hit and miss. However, if I make you also say that 50% of your effort, I'm monitoring you on your effort. A, it is in your control. B, it is in my control. C, if you dedicate and if you concentrate enough on your efforts, I'll tell you 75% of the times you will succeed. So again, the pressure, I'm moving away from just output to input, because input is controllable, input is monitorable, input is something that gives you a sense of control of over your life. And I know, after having run organizations for 32 years, that if I control your input, more often than not, the output will happen. And if it doesn't happen, the best effort wouldn't have made it possible. So again, the second point I'm making, again, when you think of purpose, think of the input purpose also, not only the output purpose. Think of your purpose as the effort and also the outcome, not only the outcome. Which brings me to my third and final point, that again, when you read a lot of self-help books, when you listen to some of the TEDx talks, when you talk to some great gurus, everybody talks about what kind of life or what you need to achieve out of life. Okay, so what do you want to achieve out of life? I want to be successful. What do you want to achieve out of life? I want to be rich and famous. What do you want to achieve out of life? I want to be an entrepreneur. Not many people ask you the question, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to live a life? And I think, again, purpose is not so much about what you want to achieve, but how do you want to achieve it? Purpose is not about, everybody wants to be successful, right? So success is not purpose. How do you achieve your type of success, your brand of success, your understanding of what success looks like? So when you think about your purpose, ask yourself, I am a unique individual with my unique talent, with my unique skills, with with serendipity having brought me to this particular place where my background is like this, my education is like this is the environment I am in. Now, in this particular context, in this particular space that I am in, what does success look like to me? And how will I achieve that? So, to give you my personal example, obviously, all of us, when we've passed out of our management schools, the same pressures that you have or the pressures we had, we need a job, we need to earn enough money, then we'll get married and have children, we want to be successful, etc., etc. But even when I was young, I was very clear that the how is more important for me than the what. Okay, so everybody in my batch wanted to just get into a bank, and I remember 32 years ago, Citibank was day one choice for everybody, and everybody 115 out of 120 of my batchmates applied to Citibank, and I was one of the few who didn't, because I wanted to get into media and advertising, because I thought that the business of managing creativity is what I will excel at. And I stayed out of placement, got a job in an advertising agency, which paid me half of what my batchmates got. But I can tell you that I was happy throughout my career. Successful. I became finally the youngest CEO of my batch. And at a particular point in time, I haven't measured myself against them, but I'm reasonably sure that I made more money than all of them. So the point that I'm making to you, that if you concentrate on your purpose by saying, how will I want to be successful? How do I want to be rich? How do I want to be famous? You'll end up finding answers which will teach you how you have to lead your life every day. And if you get the correct answers, if you're able to slot yourself in the correct how, you will be happier, you will be more productive. The moment you're happier and more productive, you will do a better job. And the moment you do a better job, invariably, I can tell you, you will achieve all the what's of your life too.
Wonderful. That's so inspiring, Apurva. And I think I need to rethink my purpose. I heard somewhere, the purpose of life is to find a purpose. And all of us are trying to find some purpose or the other, which brings me to a very relevant point in today's environment, is how important is it to adapt to a new purpose in an environment that possibly wouldn't support the purpose that you have. Now, COVID has taught us that you possibly need to course correct, possibly look at new avenues of looking at life. What would you say about that?
So I have 2 points to make here. One point is that, of course, as our environment, as our context change, as I said in the beginning of my talk also, you have to be agile enough to be able to maneuver through the uncertainty around you. So agility and adaptability, which is what they say, that why humankind has survived and dinosaurs, etc., didn't survive, is because humankind has had the ability to adapt. So adaptability is the highest form of intelligence, right? So you need to be agile, you need to adapt, you need to change. That's one point that I'm making. At the same time, I also believe that, all of us know the 4 ashrams in Hinduism, what they talk about, right? So you are in your student phase for the first 25 years, then the grihastha ashram, then the vanaprastha ashram, and then the sannyas ashram. And I think for all of us, that stage of life that we are in also can and should define your purpose. So I personally am not do not subscribe to the view that in the grihastha ashram you say that now I'm going to become a recluse and leave everything and go off to the mountains. You are meant to do a duty in these 25 years. You're meant to do a duty in your first 25 years, which is very different. So I personally subscribe to that view, that the context or the stage that your life is in. And similarly, it is for organizations. Okay, an organization which is in a startup phase should have a very different purpose than an organization which is in its mature phase. Similarly, a student who's listening to me today, their purpose needs to be very different from my purpose. So for example, at this age, I believe that my purpose now is to create impact and reduce the inequality that I'm seeing happening around me, which has got worsened by the pandemic. So yes, the pandemic has forced me to relook at it. So while creating impact was always my overarching purpose, now I'm actually saying, how do I create impact by reducing inequality, by reducing job losses, by increasing employment opportunities? So in that sense, yes, I am pivoting, but that I have to create impact has remained constant.
You've kept it fluid, and I think you're finding many purposes within the larger architecture of purpose.
Yes.
I think should be how life should be looked at, because again, nothing is constant in life, right? I mean, we always come across situations which are so unpredictable, which also brings me to the question of how you have negotiated with change, because media, and I have spent 2 decades in media myself, to understand that media is in a state of constant flux. Technology changes, markets change, content changes, everything around you changes. So how do you keep your purpose in mind while adapting to those changes which suddenly take you by surprise? 2008 was an inflection point. Suddenly the markets went down, and we know how everyone kind of had to brainstorm on how to get new sources of revenue. Demonetization again, there was a complete tailspin in the market, and it went into a tizzy. There will be incidents. Now we have COVID, so there will be incidents which will make you rethink of your purpose, your strategy. How do you, as the CEO, one, keep your purpose in place, and then make others in your team believe in that purpose and make them live that purpose as well?
So, you are absolutely right. There are many changes that have happened, and you have talked about a few of them in the last 20 years. But if I were to sort of take an even telescopic view of when I started in media, I started when there was just one Doordarshan and there were 30,000 publications, and either you chose to advertise in ABP and Times of India and Femina and Filmfare and on Rangoli on Doordarshan, or you chose not to advertise at all.
And no social media.
And no social media, no television channels.
No television channels.
And from there to see the television taking off in this manner, then to the digital age, and then OTT, along with the economic changes and economic shocks that we have witnessed in these last 30 years. So I think I've seen a huge amount of change. And I think there are a couple of ways to navigate it personally, and a couple of ways on how to ensure their teams remain centered while all this change is happening around them. So personal navigation, I think, is a lot about always being in a learning mindset. I earlier said that, for me, being a CEO teacher is very important, right? So I constantly want to teach whoever works.
And you're a very good teacher. I think if you had not been a CEO, you would have been a wonderful professor.
Thank you. That's a big compliment coming from you. Yeah, but so for a good teacher, I think you also got to be in a learning mindset constantly. So I think when digital first started coming, I started thinking of digital much earlier than my team started thinking of digital. I started understanding, reading about digital, constantly being curious about what's happening in the digital firmament. So I think that's one, that's extremely important if you want to manage change. The other thing that you need to do when you have to manage change is you have to keep your mind fluid. So you don't have all the answers. I think I'm very clear about it. I don't have all the solutions. Yes, I will sit with a team with my senior team or with experts and find solutions. But I singularly don't have answers to all the problems of the world. So I think that humility, that understanding, that practicality, that I don't have the solutions, but I will help find the solutions. So I think these are the two things which help you manage change comfortably. Now, as far as how do you help your teams navigate through the change, I think, with teams, what I apply a lot of parenting principles to to my teams, right? So tough love, which is a parenting concept, I apply there. Similarly, when, for example, when this COVID thing happened and everybody was totally shaken up and suddenly offices had closed down, we were trying to come out with our papers and our radio stations and our from sitting at home, etc., etc., and people didn't know what was happening. Suddenly, the structure of their lives had got totally shattered. Now, even we don't know, in those first 3 months, we as managers and leaders, even we didn't know what has hit us. So what I did was I created artificial work for my team. So it's almost like asking your team to, when your child is crying and you don't know how to solve his problem for the moment, because while you're cooking for him, it'll take 5 minutes for the khana to be ready. In the meantime, he's crying. So you give him some crayons and say, now draw something. So same thing. So I intensely increase the workload on them. So you're sitting at home, that's okay. Don't worry about what's happening. Now focus. How many client calls are you making today? Now I'd stopped doing reviews of client calls several years ago, because now I have teams and teams under me and CEOs under me who are doing this. But I started taking reviews of senior teams so that they remain focused on something, right? Which is certain. As I said, you remain focused on your effort. By the time we figure out what is happening outside, you just keep on doing your effort. So
wonderful. So be in a state of preparedness. So don't lose touch with reality. Don't lose touch with your craft.
And more importantly, remain in touch with your efforts, because that's the only thing in your control.
Okay. One of my earliest recollections of Apurva Purohit was this young, very dynamic CEO in Zee Television. I had gone to shoot a documentary of Subhash Chandra, and I spent considerable amount of time there with you. And I could see you in complete command and control in what looked like a very male-dominated environment, a very male-dominated industry. How did you negotiate those difficult turns of managing people in an industry which was predominantly driven by male ego? And I've seen it very closely. And also, you've written in your book, you've called it the imposter syndrome. So talk about the imposter syndrome and how Apurva Purohit managed to work in organizations like Zee, Times of India, and all these organizations which never could imagine of a woman CEO.
So you're absolutely right. It's not easy being a woman in a male-dominated world. In fact, it's not easy being a woman in a male-dominated society, whether it's public spaces, whether it is, the civic spaces. It is difficult to be a woman. And I think the way we bring up our daughters, the way we bring up our young girls, we naturally ask them to be quieter than they need to be less vocal, less visible. We do it to protect them, to ensure that they are safe, right? Don't talk loudly, don't laugh loudly, don't be boisterous, don't wear short clothes, don't put red lipstick. We do all this in an effort to protect them. But what we also end up doing is bonsaiing them. So when they go into public spaces, they are naturally more tentative. And that's where this whole imposter syndrome also comes in, because you are not meant to be here. You were meant to be in the kitchen cooking. You were meant to be inside the house. How come you're in a male dominated
Taulia lao types, as per your definition. Give taulia to your husband when he's ready.
Make garam chai for him and pack his dabba for him. Here you are standing there and asking somebody to pack your dabba for you. So how do you so that there is an imposter inside all women who's telling them you're not good enough, you're not meant to be here, by mistake, it's just by luck, you'll get caught out soon, beware. And I think women need to do far more of self-talk. Women need to do far more of confidence building within themselves.
That could become their purpose.
Absolutely. That I will be confident. I will ensure that my voice is heard, because if my voice is not heard, my opinions will not matter.
Mhm. Absolutely. We just have another 7 minutes left. I'll take quick questions from the audience. Um, doesn't having an annual or weekly goal also help to stay on track to achieve your dreams if you already know what you want? Mannat asks this question.
As I said, goals, sub-goals, sub-KRAs, weekly time are very good things to do. I agree with that. Having structure in our lives is very important, because otherwise our life can become very, very messy. And of course, when you have set out to earn so much money or lose so much weight, breaking it up into weekly goals is very important. My only point here, the 2 points that I made, one is make goals not about the output, but make goals about the effort. So it's not about, okay, I have 5 kilos to lose, I will lose kilo 1 in week 1, kilo 2 in the second week. No, I will walk 10,000 steps every day in order to lose that 5 kilos. Right. So the effort needs to be also given a goal and purpose to, not only the output. The second thing is that if you have very hard and fast output, yes, I want to be healthy. Healthy broadly means I should lose around 5 kilos, and I should lose it within 9 months to a year. So keeping it a little fluid prevents you from being so focused, prevents you from getting disturbed when life comes and gives you such a whack that, okay, for 3 months you couldn't even go to the gym. So then if you were so stuck up on I have to lose weight, by the 6th month, 3 months, you were not even able to go to the gym because there was a pandemic. How will you deal with it?
Absolutely. Siddhi asks a very important question. What advice, very interesting actually, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career? Could you have done something differently?
So if I look back, I'm pretty much quite happy with how my life turned out, the choices I made, etc., etc. So because I think, fairly sorted out even as a 21-year-old. However, I think I would definitely tell my younger self to, be much more confident about my abilities and not be tentative. I would definitely tell my younger self that, to to have a little more fun than be highly intense and too focused. Allow other parts of my life also to flourish, because I feel for a fairly large part I didn't allow other parts of my life to flourish as much as I would have liked.
So, how do you have fun now? Now that you told me you didn't have as much fun earlier, how do you have fun now?
I have fun by, first of all, not worrying about others' expectations of me. So that has removed one huge stress from my head, trying to be what my mother wants me to be, or my husband wants me to be, or my boss wants me to be, or I've removed that pressure completely. The moment that pressure is off my head, I do things that that I want to do. I don't care about other people's opinion about me. I don't worry about what anybody has to, and I just, everything from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, I do exactly what I want to do.
You're in the flow.
Yes.
And the last question that has come from Devnoor is, how would you describe your leadership style or your philosophy?
So, as I said, I think my leadership style is a style which is really based from a lot of things that I learned as a parent. I definitely am a teacher. I am happy when my teams, when they pass through me, end up becoming better professionals, equally better human beings. So I spend a lot of time with my teams in not only teaching them about media and radio and print, etc., but equally about what does it take to be a good human being. Because I think organizations are microcosms of society. If you get all the organizations in the world develop good individuals and good human beings, automatically we will become a better society.
With that, Apurva Purohit, thank you so much, ma'am, for making time to speak with us at the Purpose Summit. Always inspiring to have you. On behalf of the Managing Committee, the Vice Chancellor, and the university community, my sincere gratitude. I hope you will bless us again with your presence. And once everything settles down, we really hope you come to the campus and be the professor that you've always been.